Welcome back to Chapter by Chapter, where I review a book a chapter at a time to see where it fell apart. The following review will contain spoilers. In the last chapter, Isla set her arm on fire and then healed it with a potion. And by healed, I mean she closed the skin, but did nothing for the pain. I'm gonna be honest, I'd rather take care of the pain. But the end result might not be aesthetically pleasing, and the main character can't have unsightly scars. Anyway, Chapter 16 opens with Isla trying to get undressed and Grimm appearing in her room. Since he can move around invisibly, one must wonder if he has previously spied on the barely legal queen. Also, she keeps referring to her arm as aching and sore. Let's remember she cooked her arm until the skin cracked and peeled. She should be in screaming pain or completely numb. But she can't show pain. Tara and Poppy tortured her so she would never flinch. I have a question. If Tara and Poppy's plan was for Isla to seduce the king, for what purpose would she need to hide pain of skin-peeling level burns? What sort of shit do they think Oro's into? But back to Grimm being a creeper. Isla is definitely angry he snuck into her room and is watching her. Not remotely turned on. Nope, not one bit. She's also definitely mad about the demonstration. "You made a mockery of my demonstration, demon," she said, lest she forget why she was mad. "I told you about the trial. I gave you time to prepare." Her inexplicable hurt must have peeked through her expression, because his eyes softened. "Heart-eater," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "I thought you would have guessed by now, but let me make this clear. I have no interest in winning the Centennial, or forming alliances, or playing this game at all. There's no clear objective to any of this. I know what the book says the objective is, but logically it doesn't track. Still, Grimm not wanting to play the stupid game shouldn't be a surprise. What with the whole war since the incarnation of these islands. Why is Grimm here? Should have been asked by absolutely everyone since moment one. The king should have had him watched, and the fact he gallivants about the palace while invisible should be highly concerning. But then, I guess he couldn't appear randomly whenever needed. Isla finally asks the "why are you here" question, while assuring us she has definitely been thinking it the whole time, even though we are in her head and know she hasn't. Thankfully, she does have the presence of mind to call his implication he came for her as absolute bullshit. Then Grimm gives a short history lesson, telling Isla how Lightlark was created not just by Oro's ancestor, but by his own as well. That was the reason the war between Nightshade and Lightlark. No wonder Grimm hadn't been invited to any of the previous Centennials. Isla wondered how Oro could host the person who had invaded his home, killed his kin. The king must have been truly desperate to end the curses. Isla, honey, do you know what an unreliable narrator is? Why are you accepting Grimm's version of events at face value? He could be lying through his teeth, or it was just a history he was taught and never questioned. Either way, he's been at war with Lightlark for centuries. He is the bad guy at this point. And that begs the question why he wasn't invited, or even forced to come, to the Centennials. If a ruler has to die for reasons, why hasn't everyone been gunning for him? Why aren't they gunning for him now? Even if these rules exist for secret reasons, they need to have a plausible explanation in the moment. Anyway, she asks if he created the curses, and he says no. She believes him because his pain looks so real. When she won't tell him what she's doing at the Centennial, he laughs and walks out through the wall. in chapter. Again, I ask why he hasn't just murdered them all if he hates them so much. Like, walk through the wall, yank open Oro's curtains, or overrule her dead. Can't establish that kind of motivation with that kind of power and do nothing with it. Chapter 17. Isla spends the day icing her arm, because that's all you need after you cook your nerves. Then she goes wandering the halls. She notices the moonlings setting up for a demonstration, but learns nothing useful. The next night, it's time for Cleo's demonstration. Isla is surprised that the night-themed ruler is having her demonstration at night. It is a demonstration of desire to prove they want what is best for their people over what they want for themselves. The rulers must swim through a maze of water and ice. The one that reaches their desire first wins. I hope she checked everyone could swim, or at least made the water shallow enough to stand. Isla and Oro have a quick sidebar about what amounts to poison ivy rash that Oro could have only gotten by playing in the forest. Clunky foreshadowing, but I suppose it works. The bell goes off and they jump in. The water is hypothermia cold. It would actually be interesting if these little games could kill them, but no. Isla reminisces about how she was left in a hurricane to do survival training once, because that's just like a polar plunge. Tara and Poppy were apparently unconcerned. She nearly died. But freezing to death doesn't feel like death from exposure on a tropical island, so she must be fine. As she continues to not die, she realizes she really wants to live. Not just for her realm, but for herself. Again, clunky, but okay. Isla pushes through, but Cleo won the trial, which feels like cheating, so good for her. She feels like the only person here playing to win. We're not told what Isla's deepest desire is. Who needs character development anyway? Ella rushes Isla back to her room for a hot bath and tea, as Isla realizes wanting to live and be alive aren't selfish or putting herself above her people. In chapter. On to 18. It opens with Isla being super sick for the last few days. Points for consequences. But Isla insists she and she alone has the stealth to sneak onto Moon Isle. So I'm sure those points will be lost to nonsense. The moonling's curse is to be swallowed by the sea on the full moon. The moon controls the tides, so I guess that worked. But it means they all have to hide in the castle. Castle that holds the library. Again, why are we so sure the bond breaker is in a library? And why do all these people keep their treasure vaults in the library? I mean, beyond the books factor. She can't take the road, so she must climb a 50-foot chalk cliff. But don't worry, she has been trained for this. Because of course she has. Apparently Tara made her watch monkeys climb trees, and because it looked effortless and thoughtless, it could only mean that it was. Just ignore that monkeys who really did just swing and hope for a branch to be there learned about natural selection the hard way. And she promptly gets herself stuck because she wasn't planning ahead. Shocker. Catches a hold just in time for the rock to crumble, and she falls. Isla estimated the window was 50 feet up. Rule of thumb. A critical fall is 3 times a person's height. Isla is probably around 5 foot, making this a 10 times her height fall. She is super dead. Thank you for your time, and... No, wait, she's saved by... You have got to be f***ing kidding me. That is rule of cool bullshit. Miss Astor, do you even have editors? Okay, so she saves herself by, and I can't believe I'm saying this, unclasping her choker, which is actually a dagger, somehow, and slams it into the cliff face to stop her fall. Physics be damned. Let's remember her arm is still fried and she's still hypothermic. You can have cool weapons that do questionable things in your story. However, this is not how you introduce them. This is a Chekhov's gun that should have been hung up chapters ago, not just pulled out of your ass in the moment of need. She makes it to the window and then critiques Cleo for being a competent ruler with guards on patrol on the cursed night when the entire population is hiding in the castle. A night when panic could lead to major loss of life. Or more generally, they're all playing a stupid game of kill the ruler. She darts into a room to avoid a patrol, but oops, they spotted her, leaving us on a cliffhanger. Let me just unclasp my dagger choker so we can move on to chapter 19. The door flies open and... Oh, come on. Really? Okay. I'm good. I'm sorry. I'm good. Ahem. Isla, a 19-year-old shut-in, who has fried nerves in one arm, is hypothermic, just climbed a 50-foot cliff, saved herself from a fall with a dagger that definitely did not dislodge her shoulder, then climbed another 20 feet, breaks out her badass ninja skills and hits both guards, who are God only knows how much older and more experienced than she is, 6 times each in their pressure points before they can react or even call for help. Kill me. She abandons stealth and races down the hall into 4 more guards. Why did she dye her hair and dress like a moonling if she's going to run around acting suspicious? Hell, isn't she supposed to be a seductress? Just seduce a guard and have him take you to the library. Or at least walk around looking lost and confused. She worried she's going the wrong way until she hears the ocean. This castle must only have 1 level because she hasn't taken any stairs. So the library must be close. But no, she hits a wall, literally and figuratively, and has apparently attracted the attention of every guard on the level. The master of stealth, everyone. Aster could have made this so funny if she wasn't desperate to be very serious. Oh look! The wall is not a wall. She found the hidden library. Let me get this straight. She climbed 50 feet to an open window, but just so happened to be on the exact right floor, got chased through a castle by a bunch of guards Scooby-Doo style, and manages to run into the library's hidden door. And all of this without knowing where the actual library is. Forget trading. Her superpower is luck. The whole library is frozen, which I'm not sure is good for the books, but I guess they can just water bend the paper dry. A wave hits the building and she falls, cracks her head, and warps the floor enough to reveal the flooded restriction section below. She sees no bond breaker, though it's a giant glass needle. In a room full of water, it would be almost invisible. But logic hasn't shown up yet, so let's not rely on it now. Her injuries finally catch up with her in this dramatic moment, and the star stick is finally used, probably because Aster needed an out. Chapter 20. Isla actually takes the time to heal, though 2 days probably isn't enough, but magic immortals, so I'll roll with it. She concludes the only place left for the bond breaker to be is the Sunling Library. And I'm going to ask why they didn't start there. They are guests of the palace. Surely just wanting to go read a book is something they can do. But this is a weirdly segregated society, so who knows? Isla is certain Cleo knows it was her, though she likely can't prove it. I would say this is because Cleo appears to be reasonably competent. Isla thinks it's because Cleo hates her. She also wonders if the other rulers know Cleo is building an army along with her ships. I would say of course they do, but they are remarkably incompetent, so who knows. But also, Nightshade has been at war with Lightlark since the beginning. Shouldn't they all have armies? Oro has invited them all to tea, and I really like this scene. Magical dancing teacups. It's nice when magic is used for basic things in life. Of course, everyone is served 3 different cups of tea at the same time, and Isla does not think this is at all strange. In fact, no one does, because they all drink. Turns out this is Oro's demonstration, and once again I ask how none of these people are dead yet. It was truth tea, and the leaves reveal their greatest secret. Of course, Isla says she has no power. But I can't help wondering if someone says they have a collection of kinky Oro fanfiction. Not damning, just embarrassing. Oddly, Isla's shocked that Grimm, of all people, has secrets. The king declares that whoever shares their secret wins the trial. Celeste, Azul, Isla, and Grimm all break their cups, leaving Cleo and Oro, who are tied for points. Isla waxes poetic about how the winner would decide alliances and guide their search for meaning in the prophecy, and I really don't care at this point. I seriously doubt Aster bothered to think up a prophecy, much less actually put it in the book. Cleo blinks first and smashes her cups. Oro shows his cup, which reads, "I am dying," bringing us to the close of chapter 20. Not a terrible chapter, probably one of her best so far. Mostly because it doesn't have Isla pulling mad skills from where the sun don't shine. There's a fine line between giving your main character the skills they need and making them hyper-competent in all things. Despite the fact that Isla is functionally a newborn, compared to literally every other character here, she always has the training. It makes any struggle she has feel cheap. 50-foot chalk cliff? She can climb it. Hand-to-hand combat with trained guards who have magic? No problem. Do both of these with burned nerves? Cake. Most of the skills Isla pulls out of her ass would take decades to master, all on their own. Even if she had trained from the time she could walk, there simply isn't time for her to master so many disciplines and skills. Weirdly, Aster could have made her a few centuries older. She would still be a child compared to Grimm and Oro, but I could buy that she'd learned all of this and was at least competent, if not a master. It's actually a fairly common problem for new authors. They want to make their protagonist interesting, so they pile on the special skills. But in reality, a character that always has something up their sleeve isn't all that fun to read about. You can still have an independent badass who needs no man without them being flawless. We all need someone to lean on from time to time. Giving Isla the Star Stick was a good thing. It gives her a special power with defined limits. But I'm pretty sure this is the first time she's used it since the opening. And it was only after Aster had written herself into a corner with an absolutely ridiculous series of events. Thank you for your time. I know everyone's mileage will vary, so feel free to leave your thoughts.